Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be installing all fresh metal underneath so that we've got something for our panels to go onto. Just going to give you a quick skim over before I get into it. We've been getting a little bit of good weather lately, so I'm going to make the most of it and get as much as I can done. So first thing that I need to do first is to pull the fuel tank. So I'm going to pull the fuel tank, I'm going to fill these, and I'm going to weld these up as well. There were vents there, but I've done away with all the vents and all the access cavities that aren't needed. So I cut them out about a year ago, and I'm not welded it because obviously the tank's underneath. So that'll be getting done finally. Them vents as well, we'll be doing away with them. And that's all I'm restricted by to do them jobs, is the tank. So once I've done that, we'll be moving on to getting our rear beam off. And then once the rear beam's off, we'll be undoing it from there, take the old thing. We've got this section that needs to come off. I've already got the plate for this because I traced around it when I was doing the other side, which is that plate there. That's heavy gauge steel, so that's 2mm. And install that plate all the way from here because that's fresh metal, so we'll have a continuous stream of fresh metal. Do away with all that. Same piece of steel going to be running up all along this seam, and we'll have to redo the holes for the rear beam. Then we'll have something for this to tie into because it's got nothing to tie into at the minute. And that piece of steel, I think it will finish somewhere about here, so we'll have something for our inner wheel arch to tie into as well because that's gone there. So today's video, I don't think it'll look any different on the exterior. I might have to chop a little bit of this out to carry out that repair, but that's as far as I'll be going. I won't be removing any of the under seal. I won't be fixing that or that. I'll do another wheelhouse video and we'll take care of them issues. I'm going to get the tank off now. Take the tank off and then take the filler neck off because you've got to rotate the filler neck by the looks of it. I'm going to leave the rear beam on while I'm underneath doing the repairs that the fuel tank are restricting, just because it's safer to jack it up on the rear beam. When the rear beam comes off, it's going to be jacked up on the furthest point of the car, right on the end of the chassis leg. And when the car's about 2 foot up in the air, it's not very stable. So I'll be jacking it up from the rear beam, carrying out the repairs, and when I come to repair the chassis, that's then when I'll take the rear beam off finally. First I'm going to undo the wiring for our sender unit. As we can see, it's nice and mouldy. Even the new Fiestas still only have a small inspection hatch. So when you're swapping a fuel pump, you can either cheat and chop the floor and then put it back down and tiger seal it and rivet it. But I'm not doing that on this. So remove our sender unit. When we drop the tank down, I'll go ahead and remove the fuel lines from underneath. We're all jacked up. Got it as high as it'll go. First things first, I'm going to split the filler neck, get our breather off. The majority of tanks today, they're all on with a strap, and then you can just leave them down, but this has got bolts either side. Might be an easier way, I've never done one like this, but we'll soon find out which is easier. Gonna undo our first bolt now. Anything old and rusty like this, use a 6-point socket, because you won't get it off at the 12, and then you'll knacker it. Go ahead, hit that on. Even though that was on after the first couple of knocks, it's good just to hit it and shock the rust, and that'll help break it free as well. So now we've got a good head on there. Managed to get the 2 front ones out, no hassle, because they go inside the chassis. They're not exposed on the back side of the threads. But these ones on the back, both of them have knackered up. So I've just ground the head off the bolt. And now we've just got the one left. So we've got all 4 bolts out. And there's only one fuel line left. Final point of connection now, and I've got no idea how to get it off. Tried everything. I don't think that's the answer. There's 2 little nodules in there, but they don't line up with absolutely anything. Got our final fuel line disconnected, and unfortunately it was a brake situation, but I'm not too concerned. The plastic collar around the edge, that must have gone brittle because it just snapped dead easy. Didn't take much to do it. Got a little bit of fuel in the tank, so I'll go ahead and scavenge that. I'll be putting it in the tank in the McGann. So I've got a little aquarium net here. It's not that fine, but it'll catch any big bits. Maybe I won't use that. Well, our petrol's settling over there. We got 2 more jugs out of it. Let's go ahead and see what it looks like in the tank. A lot more better design on these. Today they're all plastic. And when they haven't been off before, they go brittle and snap. But you're not going to have that problem with a metal one. Remove the lock and ring. Don't want to damage it. There's our fuel pump and sender unit. So it is actually quite dirty in there. I was expecting it to be clean. It was all sealed, but I suppose after the years it does get a lot of build up in there, opening the cap. Little twig. It's not rusty. Got a little bit in there. If it would have had a full tank, well, it's been laid up, it wouldn't be rusty. So I'm going to get this put back together, seal it up, and then we can start work underneath now. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get underneath, bend these tabs over, and then I can weld them up from the inside. I've gone ahead and done that for all these little tabs. And if you'd ask me, that's a belter weld. What I have also done is this cavity, this has been cut open for a long time. All the little inspection holes, I think there's about 5. There's one there, one there, one in the middle, and we've got that one in there. So I've gone ahead and filled them underneath and from the inside. Just thought I'd take a break. I've been welding all of this permanently, going from spot to spot, and there's been quite a bit done. So that little cutout there, welded that on both sides. I'm going to go ahead, chop all that out down to there, put a new piece in, because there's no point in having them. I'll just do a little hole, put a bung in it, and then that's how I'm going to do maintenance on the chassis. All these inspection holes, welded them two up as well. Done this set of grooves, I've done that set of grooves. Inspection holes on both sides, they're not needed. I'll just take a bolt out and that's how I'll oil the chassis. So I'm not going to video any of the grinding, there's been enough of that on this channel. So I will go ahead and grind these off and get them nice and pretty before the video is over. Get a coat of primer on here as well. But the tank has been restricting me from doing them. So now that we've got that done, the likes of these jobs, that'll only take half an hour to cut out, weld a new piece in, grind it off. So I can do them at my leisure. So next I'm going to be moving on to the main part. As we can see, all this needs to be removed. I've made a plate which goes along this edge all the way up to about here. And if you look on the driver's side, that's the side I've done that last year. Still needs final prep like the rest of the car, but that's come out very nice, and I've been able to weld an inner sill onto that. So that's what we've got to do next to give something for our outer sill to go onto. Here we have it. It's all jacked up, it's all on axle stands. The suspension is able to come off freely. We've got 4 bricks, axle stands, as tall as I can get them. So we're going to undo 2 bolts for the shockies, 4 bolts for the bush on the rear beam, and off it comes. Just like that, undone our 2 bolts, and it's dropped down. Just undoing the last bolt now. Rear beam is now off. First thing I'm going to do is just start removing all this rusty metal. So we'll chop that back, remove this piece, and we're going to chop into here as well a little bit. We've just had a good 25 minutes of chopping. Removed all of that. We've now got access to the cavity as well. Removed this just thought I'd go ahead and do that. We can put our inner arch straight on here now because this is fresh metal. That's a repair panel by me, so that needs tidying up before the inner sill goes on. And this is the main piece in question. So I've gone ahead and removed just a little bit. The reason being why I've stopped here, I was going to go ahead and chop all this out and flapper disc this panel off, but even though it's all rotted and rusted away, I still think it's given it just enough strength. With the way I've got the car jacked up, it's on quite of a harsh angle, and that is still doing its job, it's just rusted away. So before I go ahead and chop that out, I'm going to go ahead and do some welding. I would like to chop it all out and then weld it back in, but the likes of that there's no steel on that mounting. There's nothing tying the chassis leg to the outer sill. So I'm going to do some welding before I chop any more out, because I think we've removed enough. That's the heavy gauge steel that was used to repair this piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a little bit of welding, tie this piece to that mount and then tie it to the inner chassis leg, so I know that that's all tied in. And I'll go ahead and do some welding on the inner sill, tie that to the body of the car as well. And I'm going to weld this as well, stop that flexing, so I know that everything's tight and held together. I've welded this to the inner arch now, that's nice and solid. And I've welded this bit of chassis leg to the rear beam mount. And I've managed to weld that all the way along. And I've stitched as far in up there as I could get. I'm going to go ahead and prep this cavity first. Go ahead, scrape all the slag off. I'm going to give it a coat of red oxide, and then I'll give it a coat of etch primer and top coat later. Force it into all the grooves, all the nooks and crannies where moisture is likely to sit. If moisture does end up in here, which is quite likely with condensation, it's just going to sit on the paint, and then on a hot day it'll evaporate. So as long as there's no bare metal, I know I've done my part. Just primed our cavity, just waiting for that to dry, and then I'll top coat it. That's the only piece of steel which isn't accessible when I put an inner sill on. So I've gone ahead, rust remedied, red oxide and etch prime that. And that's quite a big panel. So there's the tape. That's going to be going all along here, and it's going to finish about here. And then when I put this plate on, I can chop it down. So I've got that just baking in the sun. Skipping along just a little bit, the piece of steel you've just seen is all welded in. So that is now our inner sill. And I've had the outer sill on, traced it to where it comes to, and now this piece of steel is our box section. So I've chopped that right back, and that's what this piece is here. I think this is 1.5 or 1.8mm steel. I'm not using proper heavy gauge steel. So that's going to go from here to this black line, and this is warped a little bit overnight. So we'll pull that out and we'll get the warp out of it when I weld it to this line. I have to do all of this on the other side, so I know exactly what I'm doing, and it's going quite fast. Got our box section tacked in, and I know it's not the same shape and it's not the same profile, but it's going to be stronger than it was, so it doesn't really matter. So that did come down. It had all this nice edge on for the inner wheel arch to go onto, but I'll cut this down and then I'll box section that so that can't flex either. So right now I've got this tacked in, and I'm going to go ahead and seam weld all there. Unfortunately my phone died and I didn't realise, so I didn't manage to film any of it. But what I've done was, I've got a piece of wood clamped on the back all the way along, and that straightened a piece of metal out. But now I've welded it with it clamped. It's warped it in between the clamps a little bit, but once I get the sill on I won't have to worry about that, it'll sort itself out. So now we have got our box section tied into the body of the car, and now our inner sill. Now we've got the strength back in this part of the body, we can come underneath and start chopping now. So we're going to follow this line all the way up until here, and I know that's alright, that's quite solid, but I've already got the panel and there won't be a join in the chassis then. So it'll be a nice big box section. Well, now got this section all removed, and it's worse than I thought it was on the inside, so I'm glad I've gone ahead and cut that out. I weren't expecting there to be any rust here. I know it's only surface rust, but I thought that was well sealed. It's got to that cavity a little bit, but we'll sleep that. And that there, all that can be treated. So I'll go ahead and paint our new weld from this side. Look at the penetration on that, can't complain. So I'm going to paint all in here, and I'm going to do that, I'm going to weld in that seam as well, so I know that that's nice and strong. I'll just give that a coat of red oxide, and I've just ground the rust off this piece of sheet metal, and I've found markings from where I've traced around it. So I'd like to thank past Liam for tracing around that in the past and saving me a big job today. I'm trying to rebuild it and work out where the holes go. So I'm going to go ahead and drill them out while our paint's drying. After a lot of perseverance, we've now got it all prepped. This is white spray paint, that's all I've got. I'm not going out now in the middle of this. So I've sprayed it. Unfortunately it's white, but it'll never be seen, so it doesn't matter. It's all cut out. I've welded that together. There was 2 drainage holes, I filled them as well. And the panel, I painted it before I drilled these, I forgot to drill them. So we've got spot welds here and here, and holes for the rear beam. So that can now go on. Before the start, I've got the rear beam bolt in. That's pulled our piece of sheet metal up as tight as you can possibly get it. Got a nice gap there to weld to. So So I think I'm going to do this seam first, and then I can use the jack to jack it up as we go down. The welding on here has gone very well. The first weld I've ground back off and tidied it up, and I've gone back any places that I've gone through or I've missed. I've just touched all them up. This weld against our new inner sill is very nice as well. I've got one more patch to put in, which is this piece, and then I can put the rear beam back on. I'm glad that that is finished with now. This has been a lot of welding. I still need to go along here, take these snots of weld off, but that patch has come out very nice. Still follows the shape. With a coat of paint it'll be invisible. That edge there, can't see that edge. He is a little bit tatty, but a bit of red oxide will fill that. And that edge, that's a nice big chunk of metal now to weld this to that final product right here. I know it's not going to be properly sealed with just a prime, but it's something to stop the weather getting at it. When I build it up with red oxide, fill in all the cracks and sand it down and then prime it, it'll look very nice. But I'm not going to waste my time with that now, when I can be chopping this out and getting panels ready to go on. When I paint underneath, I'll do it all in one go. Our paint is nice and dry. I'm going to go ahead, throw it back together, and that's going to be the end for us today. Fiesta is all back together. Got the rear beam on, suspension tied back in. Got this pop riveted on. So we're going to go ahead and let it down. Just going to check for any creaks and any bangs. With it back on its weight on all four. There's no sound of any welds popping. Thank you to everyone who is still here watching the video. The Fiesta is now back out on the front. And the back garden is now empty, ready for the escort to come back home tomorrow. And a sneak peek at a new project coming soon. So if you like the video, go ahead and leave a like. Don't forget to comment and make sure to subscribe so I can catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.